Welcome one and all to episode 30 of Kakariko Road. I'm one of your hosts, Petter, and with me, as always, I've got my two co-hosts, Chase.
Hello!
And Steven.
Hello.
And welcome to the 30th episode, and also the last episode of Kakariko Road for 2019.
Bum, bum, bum.
What a journey we've been on this year.
Yeah.
And this episode is also going to be the continuation of our Zelda combat discussion that we started last month. So we will talk about the second half of the Zelda games in this episode. And I guess we have a couple announcements, but maybe we should save them for the end of the episode.
Yeah, let's save it for the end. Save it for the end.
Yeah, we'll save it for the end. So stay tuned. So last episode we ended off by talking about the Wind Waker.
That sounds right.
And game after that is
Four Swords Adventures.
Exactly.
I haven't played it.
Have you played it, Steven?
No, I have not. I have not played either of the Four Swords games.
Okay, then I'm the only one who's played Adventures. But
What are the differences between the two?
well, so
Adventures is very different.
It's multiplayer is it's different, but the multiplayer isn't totally different. But the Four Swords Adventures game also has a single player mode, which I guess later versions of the original Four Swords also did, but Four Swords Adventure has a single player mode where you control all four links at the same time as one player in various ways.
That sounds really cumbersome.
You can control each separately. That's one method. You can walk with one each at a time. But you can also there's a couple of different formations that you can have them walk in, like different patterns that they can form together, like vertical lines, horizontal lines together, or like different square shapes, which does sometimes make for some rather interesting combat, although ultimately it's not really my cup of tea. And obviously the game was made to play with other people. And I haven't done that with this game.
The single player mode in Four Swords on the DSi made it extremely boring.
That it did as well. And I've heard Triforce Heroes single player mode is very shit as well. I've never tried it though.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that later down the line, but I think it's pretty similar to the first mode you described.
Right.
You control one of the links separately at a time.
Yeah, something like that.
Sounds about right.
Probably. But yeah, Four Swords Adventures, other than it being, the multiplayer being similar to the first Four Swords and the single player being what I described earlier, other than that, I don't think it's all that special or new in regards to combat. So
right.
I guess we can move on to a game that we can all talk a little bit about, the Minish Cap.
Not me.
Not you?
Nope.
I haven't finished Minish Cap, but I have played it a fair amount, so I can talk about it, in fact.
Yeah. What do you want to say about the combat in the Minish Cap?
It hasn't changed much in this game either.
True.
Still feels very similar to Four Swords.
It does. It feels like A Link to the Past and Four Swords, kind of.
Which makes sense, because they're pretty sure they were all running on the same engine.
It does look that way.
Might be, very possible.
Yeah.
Definitely Four Swords and Link to the Past are running on the same engine for obvious reasons. But...
Well, yeah. And also, the Minish Cap borrowed these elements from the single player of Four Swords Adventures, where you can form formations, as I was saying, like different patterns. Because obviously during the story of the Minish Cap, you're forging the Four Sword, and with that you get the ability to have clones of yourself.
Yeah, that just blew my mind when I saw it the first time.
Yeah, and they obviously, with the Minish Cap being a single player game, they make those types of gameplay work much better, even though it is technically borrowed from Four Swords Adventures. But yeah, they made it work much better in the Minish Cap.
Yeah, although once again, all the other items in general didn't really change usual combat all that much.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really hard. It's really hard to do that for the 2D games.
Usually, yeah, for the most part, for sure. So yeah, if you don't wanna, if you don't mind, we can move on to a 3D game, being Twilight Princess next in line.
Aha.
So there are two ways that you can do combat. One of them is evolution, a stable evolution of, Ocarina of Time than Wind Waker.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, Twilight Princess is the logical next step. It adds more special moves.
Mm-hmm.
I forget how many there.
That's something we didn't really talk about in Minish Cap, actually, but Minish Cap has those too.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
Oh, not the exact same ones, but it has what are they, the Tiger Scrolls?
Yeah, that might be what it's called. It's some kind of scrolls anyway, yeah. That's true.
Yeah, not very memorable, obviously.
Yeah, I don't really remember what they did now.
Compared to Fatal Draw, which is awesome.
Yeah, in Twilight Princess.
I think it's Mortal Draw, isn't it?
Mortal Draw, that's it.
I think it's Mortal Draw, yeah.
Mortal Kombat!
I don't know how many Howling Stones, because you go to the Howling Stones.
7, I think.
7? Okay.
I think.
That sounds about right. I know if there were quite a bit, and they did add some variety to the way you defeat enemies, because some enemies would block a certain part of their body, etc.
Yeah.
So, and then you have Wolf-Link, who is incredibly bare bones. In my
opinion. It changes up everything still.
Right. Definitely. It does offer for like a very different type of gameplay, but it's the gameplay that it offers isn't all that exciting.
Yeah.
No. I mean, it is at first. It kind of is, but.
Right. And it actually just becomes more annoying later down the line when you use. I forget what the monsters are called, but you use Midna's hair. To, you know what I'm talking about.
The Shadow Beasts, when you have to kill them, kill the last two at the same time.
That just got more annoying as the game progressed.
It's because it's never once you get the trick, it's not hard. It's just kind of annoying, as you said. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But another gameplay, combat gameplay that Twilight Princess added was a much more fleshed out horseback riding combat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they even had a couple jousting battles.
Yeah, even spoiler alert, the final boss battle has a section that's just on the horse.
Precisely.
That's right.
The only horseback combat we'd had before was in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, but that was only with a bow in those games.
Yeah.
With this game, you can use your sword as well, which is very nice. And it makes for some very cool moments, I think, especially with King Bulblin.
Yeah, King Bulblin and with Ganondorf.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think, actually, the most difficult boss battle in Twilight Princess, in my opinion, is probably that horseback battle with Ganondorf at the end.
Personally. I believe it.
I think that's usually the one that I struggle with the most.
Yeah. What did you guys think of the... the fire archers are trying to shoot down the carriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I struggled with that one in my first playthrough actually. But it's fun. It's a fun mission.
Yeah, same.
It's really not that hard.
Yeah.
But I guess for first time through it could be.
But yeah, and I like how the Nintendo developers just didn't care, and on the Wii U version they added a extra hard cave where you have to be as the wolf the whole time.
Yeah, Cave of Trials.
The DLC cave thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I never played HD, so I can't speak much to that.
I don't have a Wii U, but I can imagine that'd be really annoying and hard.
I have the game, but I didn't bother buying the amiibo.
Right, you need the Wolf-Link amiibo.
Although what is a lot of fun in Twilight Princess is this has some of the best items in a pre-Breath of the Wild game.
And a lot of the items you just never use outside of the dungeon, like the spinner, for example.
I mean, for one, we could talk about the water bomb, which is a great addition to them. Just generally how they use bombs in this game was great, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then you also have the spider bomb too.
Yeah, the bombling it was called.
Exactly. Yeah, we talked about those a little bit in the last month's episode.
Yeah.
The ball and chain was pretty good.
Yes, that is
the dungeon that it was in.
That is my favorite item in this game, and I was about to get to that.
Yeah.
It is just glorious. I'm surprised they didn't include it in Breath of the Wild.
It is great. What's so awesome about the ball and chain, in my opinion, is that it works more often than I think most players realize. It's an incredibly useful item for combat, and sure, it's slower than the sword, but it is so much more powerful.
It's also both
and,
close range and distant.
Yeah, you don't have to throw it to make it hit enemies, so...
Yeah, you can just spin it around in place, exactly. And also, when you're carrying it in your arms, it actually works as a shield as well. Like, since you're holding it in front of you. So it's actually really, really great. And I would love to see it in a future game.
Yeah, Twilight Princess gets a lot of flack for the items, but, you know, if you look at them, they're actually really fun to use.
Yep.
They are fun.
I just wish they had more uses for the spinner, though. Honestly.
Yeah, same. That was disappointing. Well, can't you use the... Another thing, can't you use the falcon as a weapon, kind of? Just like... obviously, it's not, like, a great weapon, but you can summon it and, like, throw it at things.
I mean,
That's
yes.
beautiful.
That is true. I've never used that as a strategy, though.
Neither have I. I just remember the one scene where you're, like, Metal Gearing your way through the village. And there's the guy that's just throwing the falcon at you constantly.
Right,
yeah. When you're a wolf, yeah. That is pretty good.
What's your guys' favorite of the combat arts?
Helm Splitter.
Helm Splitter is the most fancy, and it looks the most awesome, but the one that I find myself using the most is the backslice. So I'll say that one.
Mm-hmm. And I have made my...
That sounds about right, too.
I think I made my love for the Mortal Draw clear.
It is awesome.
Although that's one of the ones that you can't use all that often because you're just going to leave yourself vulnerable.
Yeah, like, it's extremely situational, but when you can use it, it's amazing.
Oh, yes, it's glorious. Oh, yes.
And Ending Blow as well, I think, is worth mentioning.
Right.
You use that one so much.
That's the only one that's actually necessary to collect to beat the game.
I think it's the first one you get, too.
It is, yeah. And it's actually forced upon you. You have to collect it. All the others are optional. But you need the ending blow or whatever to beat Ganondorf at the end. So.
Yeah,
that's right.
I do like those hidden skills, but part of me kind of feels like maybe they make the game, which is already an easy game, even easier.
Yeah,
I think they're just trying to make the game cinematic, is what they're doing.
Right. Oh yeah,
because they are very flashy, and the animations are very cool.
Absolutely, and Twilight Princess is all about that cinema.
Yeah, they do their jobs great.
Yeah. For what they are, they're splendid. Anything else you'd like to say about Twilight Princess? Otherwise, I figured we could move on to Phantom Hourglass.
Aha! Another game with great items.
Yeah, I don't have all that much to say other than that Wolflink is pretty bare bones.
Yeah.
Say that again before we move on.
True that. All right, Phantom Hourglass then. Chase, what do you have to say?
Yeah, as the local Phantom Hourglass apologist, I love this game. I mean, this is the best use of bomb chews, first of all. Like,
yes.
No questions asked. The sword play was surprisingly good for touchscreen controls. Boomerang, pretty much the same thing as the bomb chew. It's nice to have that level of control, and they really use it well in the dungeon design. The hammer's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that for like using touchscreen controls to control the sword, that was pretty good. It was very intuitive, I feel.
I agree.
That's one of the main things across both Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks was you use the stylus the whole way through. Right?
Yeah, like it really used the system was on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Phantom Hourglass especially.
Any system.
The developers of Phantom Hourglass I think they were pretty high on the DS when they were making the game.
Like they would have sex with the DS if they could.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. They of course also had some naval gameplay with the cannons.
Yeah, actually, I was about to say the same thing as well, and I think that was fun at first, but it gets boring pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's pretty there's not too much to it, but I mean, I guess it's fine. It is also the only like fully 3D gameplay that we have in this game, if I recall.
Yeah, with enemies at different heights and also 360 degrees around you.
Right.
Also, there was the one boss battle actually, I guess there's two boss battles that you have to do on the boat.
Yeah.
But I think the Ghost Ship one was fun, but the one outside of the third temple was not fun.
That one's slipping my mind right now.
The giant eye plant.
Oh, giant eye plant.
Yeah, this is the first Zelda game that I beat. I think I mentioned that before, so...
Probably.
Oh, actually, I guess I completely forgot about the Massive Eye.
Yeah.
That's what it's called. It's called the Massive Eye.
Oh, that's its name? The
Yes.
massive eye?
Nice.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, they aren't even being subtle with the tropes in this game.
No. Oh no. Certainly not. Spirit Tracks has, to a big extent, similar combat gameplay, or gameplay in general.
Yeah, once again, they reused the same engine.
Yeah.
Yes.
I almost argue that the train combat is worse than the boat combat.
I beg to disagree, actually. I think it's much easier to aim with the cannons on the train than it is in the boat in Phantom Hourglass. Personally, I thought it was. And it made it...
Yeah.
I don't know. The fact that the cannons were more accurate made it simpler and more fun.
Alright, that's fair. My main problem with it is just more in general my problem with the train versus the boat. Which I never really loved that change.
What is it about that change?
Less control, I think, is the thing.
Okay,
Like, you
that's fair.
can't just go wherever you want. You have to follow the tracks.
Fair. I guess I didn't really mind that, mainly because I think the main appeal for me in Spirit Tracks was not the gameplay on the train, but the other like areas, I guess, where you stopped.
The true appeal of that game was the gameplay with the flute.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how was the puppeting mechanics? How did that work?
That's awesome. That's the best thing that Spirit Tracks added, probably, and it's amazing.
Twilight Princess did something similar, but I assume this game did it better.
I think it did it much better. Puppeting, like Zelda taking control of the Phantoms was great.
Oh yeah, that was honestly one of the best decisions made combat-wise in the whole Zelda franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's honestly, it is way up there, and it's so much fun.
Yep.
Makes Spirit Tracks one of my favorite Zelda games,
Yeah, that's fair.
and it made the Tower of the Spirits, in my opinion, so much more fun than I'm sorry, Chase, the Temple of the Ocean King.
I'm crying, Petter. You wound me. Although I will admit, Spirit Tracks does have the whip, which is better than any item that's in Phantom Hourglass.
It has a whip?
It has
does,
a whip.
yeah.
Oh
Yeah, Spirit Tracks had a whip
gosh.
before Skyward Sword did. Mm-hmm.
And it was
my
amazing.
gosh.
It was
Nice.
pretty fun, and it looks like a snake. It has like a mouth and everything.
I need to look this up.
But I think Spirit Tracks mostly like the Phantom possession thing is pretty much the big change from Phantom Hourglass in regards to gameplay, or in regards to combat gameplay. So how about we talk a little bit about that Skyward Sword?
Aha!
So, you remember when you said that the puppeting was one of the better combat mechanics in the Zelda series? Let's talk about one of the worst.
Yeah.
Do you mean a one-to-one combat? A one-to-one motion mapping?
Nintendo thought, you know what? We're gonna make Wii Motion Plus. And what better way, other than Wii Sports Resort, to demonstrate the Wii Motion Plus is with a Legend of Zelda game focused on one-on-one duels. Concept is great. Execution, from what I've heard, not so much.
Yeah, I have very, very mixed feelings about this. It's like a lot of people hate on it, and I don't.
Yeah.
I don't hate this game. But of course, now I'm just supposed to talk about it from a combat point of view, and
Right.
that's not where this game excels. I will admit. However,
Not whatsoever.
yeah, or well,
When it's a pain to fight even the Deku Babas.
see, I don't think that's. I didn't think that. I don't want to sound like some like know-it-all, like, ooh, I'm so good at video games.
Too late.
But I know. But I did not struggle all that much with the motion controls in Skyward Sword. I hear a lot of people complaining about like the motion controls not working for them. And like they had various issues with the combat and other gameplay stuff that involved the motion controls, but I had very minor issues with those, and for me, combat and everything else, for the most part, it worked very well. Of course, it is not 1-to-1. I think that's the problem. A lot of people take Nintendo for their they trust Nintendo, saying that, oh yeah, this is gonna be 1-to-1 motion control. It's not. And I think you have to kind of understand that it isn't 1-to-1, and then you'll be able to kind of, I guess, try your way through it and find what works, and then it does work.
Yeah, the Motion Plus did improve it, but it's still a Wii remote. It's still Lagotech. So, but like I said, in concept, I like the idea of having a Zelda game be more focused on duels and more of a puzzle type of combat.
Like the boss battles with Girahim, those were still a lot of fun, despite the motion controls.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's just the problem. Is it's a core issue, and I think, and I do want to touch on this just a little bit. I think they will not port this over to the Switch.
Yeah, I'm not counting on it.
I think they've said that. Or it was either that, or they said if we do port it, we're not porting it in a way that can be played like with a controller.
No.
I don't know if they made any statements on it, but maybe they have.
I'll do some research on it, but...
Right.
Yeah.
But there were, I think the boss battles were, I think, where this game, like, as you pointed out, Chase, like the Girahim fights, but and there were a couple other boss fights. Coloctus. Exactly, Coloctus, the boss of the Ancient Cistern, was a lot of fun. Like I remember, like, after I had beaten that guy the first time, I was like out of breath because I had been standing up fighting that guy for my life.
It's just like, even the design for that boss is just beautiful.
Yeah, and
it was not what I expected.
The motion controls do add some level of immersiveness, even though they're not perfect. They definitely still do add some immersion to it, in my opinion anyway. Because I often found myself like really like involved and like immersed in some of the battles, especially the boss battles. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think Skyward Sword having this focus on the sword and on not necessarily mostly, but a lot of focus on one-on-one battles. I think it is kind of the Zelda 2 of its time.
But I like Zelda 2.
What do you mean?
Zelda 2 also had a lot of focus on the sword compared to its what came before, and also honestly compared to the two games that followed it. Zelda 2 had a lot more focus on the sword. And duels in general.
If you call it that way, then yeah. And also in the way that not a lot of people like it.
yeah, that is true too.
There you go.
But yeah, otherwise, Skyward Sword, yes, it's hard to not talk about the motion controls when talking about the combat of Skyward Sword, and I think we've probably touched on it enough. Unless there's something else you'd like to say about it.
I mean, the rest of the items in this game weren't particularly... I mean, I guess you could talk about the gust bellows if you really want.
I don't think I want that.
Yeah. I enjoyed the gust bellows. I thought they were a fun idea.
Okay, cool.
For 5 minutes.
Pretty much.
Should we move on then?
Yeah, or actually, one last thing. The bow, to me, felt really weird because you aim it as a left-handed person would, even though
really?
Even though you wield the sword in your right hand.
I forgot about that.
That's
like
weird.
You pull back your left hand when you like draw the bow.
In that sense, I do want to go back for a quick second and say that I think because the GameCube version and the Wii version of Twilight Princess were flipped. They were mirrored.
Yeah.
I think in the HD port, they gave you the option to make Link right or left-handed.
Mm-hmm. Well, no. Well, so it's depending on... It's still the flip. The whole thing is still...
It's still tied to the map, you know, which side the map's towards.
And it's the regular mode in the Wii U version is the GameCube flip, and the hard mode is the Wii flip.
And what was Link right or left-handed in the GameCube version?
Left-handed in the GameCube version, since that's the original quote unquote original.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
they turned it to right hand in the Wii version because of waggle controls.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that makes
Right.
sense. Okay.
So that's the story behind that. Want to talk about A Link Between Worlds? This is a game that we've all played.
Yep.
It's been quite some time for me, admittedly.
So one thing that this game does, I think, over most, if not all, the other games, is that you get access to all of the items pretty much right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Granted, the central item is just used for traversal. There's no combat associated with it. That being the bracelet. But other than that, you have all the items, at your disposal right away for you to use at your leisure.
Yeah, that is very nice. Very, I definitely like. It was a very nice change of pace. However, you mentioned the bracelet. Obviously, the turning into a painting on a wall mechanic is the biggest gameplay mechanic that was introduced in this game. But it's kind of sad that it's not, like, combat-wise, it's barely used. It is used a little bit, but very, very, very little.
I mean, how would you use it more?
I mean, I don't know.
It's kind of a tough one to involve in combat. Unless
It's
you want
more
to use
just traversal-wise.
I guess you could do it like the Super Mario Odyssey way. That was fun.
Dude, yeah, totally.
You could turn to like Zelda 2 style combat for small portions of the game.
That would have been really cool, actually.
That would
I like
have been
that
cool,
idea.
but sadly that was a missed opportunity. Yeah, with like hieroglyphic enemies, that would have been interesting, but sadly they did not take that route.
that definitely could have been a fun combat gameplay thing. But, like, spoiler alert for this video game, if I recall, the only time when you actually do anything combat related as a painting is in the very final battle, right?
That makes sense.
I don't quite remember.
Because you shoot an arrow across around the room on the wall in the back of the boss to beat him.
I think so. I don't quite remember, but yeah, I just wish that
I never reached the final boss.
I just wish that they used it more for combat-wise and not just traversal.
Right.
Should we talk a little bit about the renting mechanic, maybe?
Yeah, so like I said at the beginning of this, like, you have all the items right away and you rent them.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you only can carry so much at a time. And a lot of the dungeons, this is a combat focus, but a lot of the dungeons can be completed with multiple sets of items, which I think is great. So you could choose to carry certain items with you, take out the enemies in the room, and see if you can still beat the dungeon with what you have on you.
Yeah. That's cool.
But it's not really, something to do with combat per se, but...
I mean, it has to do with how you can choose to do combat, which means that there are boss battles that you could do multiple ways, which is interesting.
Right. And of course, every dungeon has, an obvious item. I think one dungeon's focused on bashing, like, these faced things with the hammer so they can launch you up, etc.
Right. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the renting mechanic, I think, adds the most new to the combat in this game. So overall, like, not that much. Moving on to the next game in line, another 3DS game titled Triforce Heroes, beloved multiplayer video game.
I have not played Triforce Heroes yet.
Same here.
Wink, wink.
Hint, hint.
I will say out the gate that this game uses the same engine, kind of in line with all the other handheld DS or Zelda games. This game uses the same engine as Link Between Worlds.
Right.
Granted, they changed up the models and stuff, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they went with the Toon Link aesthetic in this game. My quick comment on the combat in Triforce Heroes is that, well, I will first of all say I have not tried the single player. I've only heard dreadful things about it, so I never dared to try it out.
Basically, from what my knowledge is the single player is just carrying the two totems with you through the whole campaign. I've heard
awful things.
Just stack them in a totem pole the entire time and run around screaming.
Yeah, it's not like the Four Swords example that you brought up earlier, where you can have like formations and stuff.
Right.
So,
It seems even worse than that. But I have played it. So I started off by playing this game with strangers, like because you can search for people to play it with, random people somewhere in the world, and that is okay. The gameplay that way is fine. It's cool, but of course you can't really communicate with them outside of little like emojis or link emoticons. And that doesn't really help when you're trying to solve a puzzle and you've solved it, but you're trying to make the others understand what the hell to do. So it really is a lot more fun with actual friends that you can talk to while you're playing, and that actually makes this game so much fun. Like, it's, in my opinion, it's undescribably fun. Like, I've had such amazing times playing this game with friends, and the combat, like the cooperation during the combat is just like, it's nothing like the two previous multiplayer Zelda games that we had. I think it's way superior to both of the Four Swords games.
Cool. How does the totem mechanic work again?
It works great. You can pick up each other, and you can carry each other around. You can walk around like as a three link tall man, and then the bottom man is the feet, and the top man is the sword. Or the item, if he's holding another item.
How does the sword guy reach the ground if he has to reach down 2 of his own body lengths?
Oh, he can't reach an enemy on the lower ground if he's on the 3rd level. So there are like always levels in this game. Some enemies you have to be like a certain height in order to hit, for example.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there's a lot of those kind of like, so they kind of put those kinds of puzzles into the combat a lot of the time, because sometimes you'll find like a mob of Deku Scrubs, for example, and the Deku Scrubs will have different heights, so you'll have to cooperate with each other to defeat all of the Deku Scrubs as fast as you can, or without taking too much damage. And also in this game you have a shared health meter, so.
Yeah,
that's fun, especially when you're playing with strangers that are really bad at the game.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
But yeah, I will never play it with strangers again. Wink, wink. Moving on to another game.
Oh no!
The game that has probably the most diverse combat in the whole series.
I think so, for sure. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
For a very long time. So I don't know how many weapons are in this game.
You want me to start counting?
No. But there are a lot. Like you even have different types of bows, like long bows, multi-shot bows, etc.
Yeah.
It looks like about 120 different types of weapons.
You mean 120 some odd weapons?
Yeah.
Because by type of weapons,
they're not type of weapons, but 120 some weapons.
Yeah, because by type of weapons, I'm thinking like short sword, great sword,
the wiki has
regular
the
sword, axe, etc. That's what I'm talking about when I say types of weapons.
Right.
Oh, yeah. So there's 120 total weapons.
Okay.
And each of them feel different, which I think is very good and important for this too.
Yeah, because in previous Zelda games, we had basically only had one-handed swords. There had been, like, Wind Waker, we could use some enemy weapons and whatnot, but, like, never to a big extent. But Breath of the Wild offers not just one-handed sword, but also great two-handed swords, two-handed clubs, two-handed axes, spears. I love the spears.
Spears are great.
And even some like magical like rods, which is a lot of fun.
Now, what makes this game really, diverse is you're constantly switching between these weapon types because your weapons break.
Yes, and I love that.
Great.
I love that mechanic so much. Because for me personally, I think if the weapons breaking mechanic didn't exist in this game, I would have probably just stuck to like the one-handed sword, because that's what I'm used to, and it is one of my favorites, admittedly, But I've also, thanks to the fact that my weapons break, I've been forced to use others as well, and thanks to that, I've grown fond of pretty much all of them to various extents.
Right.
And they all have their purposes. Like if you're up against a Lizalfos, for example, it's pretty good to use like weapons with a long reach. So a spear is beneficial in that scenario, for example. Or if you're fighting something that has a lot of HP, you're going to want to use something that hits hard. So you can take like a slower weapon, like a big two-handed sword or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And then there's also the whole mechanic of electricity and not being able to use metal weapons during thunderstorms and during one boss battle.
That's also true.
The boss battle in
Naboris,
yes, the camel. The boss battle in that one is, I think, the hardest boss battle, or the hardest battle in this game, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's harder even than Calamity Ganon, in my opinion.
And then we can also talk about how the runes, the word escaped me for a while. I want to touch on a glitch. Now, I watched a YouTube video about like how to, beat the game in, without pausing or switching out the inventory. But they brought up a glitch where if you use Magnesis on a weapon, you can have infinite mass. I'll show you the video later. But basically, you can use weapons that you just drop on the floor to push things with infinite mass. So there's an inherent use for Magnesis.
Interesting.
Of course, you can also like move boxes around and just, whack enemies with boxes. That's also
precisely
pretty fun.
There's so much you can do with like the environment in general, like things that you find lying around. Like you mentioned, boxes, you can just use them and smack enemies around with, and if there's a thunderstorm going on, you can like put one of your metal weapons on the ground and use Magnesis to place it near an enemy or something like that, and then lightning will strike it. And yeah, it's so great. You can fight boulders, you can roll down onto enemies, like simple things like that.
You can also use stasis to move boulders, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you can also you can set a fire to get some like an updraft, so that you can fly upward to get an advantage in combat. Because one cool thing in Breath of the Wild, which I use a lot, is that if you're in the air and pull out your bow, you get like a slow-mo effect, and you can you can take your time aiming and stuff. It's like a Matrix kind of feeling, and it's really, really cool. I use it so much.
Yeah. And then of course there's the old-fashioned bombs.
Yes.
Chucking bombs.
Yeah, and bombs are really great. I love the fact that you can detonate them at will in this game. I think is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's just so much variety in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's forced on you, so.
Yeah, and I think that's great. Like, there's so many good things I can say about this game. I mean, there's a reason why it's my favorite video game of all time.
Right.
One thing this game does also, like compared to other games, is that it will have like here and there in the world, there will be these basically boss like enemies, such as Lionels or Walking Guardians, like these really powerful enemies that you may just stumble across seemingly randomly, and I think combat-wise that's a really, really fun thing, because early in the game you'll be scared shitless, or at least I was. But when I saw like a Lionel or a Walking Guardian, and they were approaching me and like the music started playing, and I was like, oh fuck, oh shit, oh fuck. But then later on in the game, after you've died to these enemies once or twice, but a little later you're ready to take them on, and you're able to beat them eventually, and that's a great feeling. It's also because this game, it's not just the fact that you got better weapons, better armor, more health, more stamina. It's not just though. I mean, those things are definitely helpful, absolutely, but this game also has a very natural and, in my opinion, very smooth learning curve for the player. So it's not just the upgrades in the game that make you better. It's also your own skill that improves.
Right.
And that feeling is also lovely. Because I remember when I first stumbled across a major test of strength in this game, my first time, because the shrines sometimes will be called a major test of strength, which is
Right.
a battle against a pretty difficult guardian. And my first time, I tried and tried and tried and tried and tried and could not for the life of me beat the first one of those shrines that I came across in the game. I mean, admittedly, it was pretty early in the game, and so, but yeah. But on later playthroughs, when I've come across that shrine equally early in the game, I've been able to beat it despite not having more help from the game, you know.
Yeah, you're more experienced at that point.
Exactly, yeah. You're right. So it's natural. But yeah, I'm going to cut myself off there. I don't want to go too... I don't want to rant on too much. I'm sorry about that.
I'll be honest, I kind of like stopped listening at some point.
I don't blame you. And after Breath of the Wild, we got the sequel to Breath of the Wild, which we cannot talk about because we don't know anything about that.
What kind of changes do you guys want to see made to the Breath of the Wild formula for that game?
I don't think the runes will be in this game.
I want to see like an actual magic system like in Zelda 2. That's my big thing I want added.
Yeah, I will say that I don't think the runes are going to be in this game. I think they're going to be replaced with whatever Link gets at that basement. But we won't know.
The Ganon Soul.
Yep, exactly. But we won't know until we see more footage or when we play the game. I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be... Hopefully at E3 we'll figure more stuff out. I imagine we won't see anything before then.
Not a direct before then?
Not unless they plan to release it early in the year, which I doubt, because it's Nintendo, and they don't do that. Just give us a magic system, that's all I want.
Yeah.
That would be really cool. I'm totally down for that.
What about you, Petter? Got anything else?
The games before Breath of the Wild usually had had more variety in the items that existed that you could use for combat. Since Breath of the Wild pretty much just has the like swords and axes, you know, roughly, like, you know, putting it simple, that's what that is.
The items were basically the runes, and that was it.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So I think going back to like a more traditional item set, maybe could be fun.
Bring back the ball and chain.
Exactly. As we said earlier, the ball and chain would be awesome, for example.
You're right.
And maybe easier to use boomerangs, or because we did have boomerangs in Breath of the Wild, but they were, I thought they were a little bit clunky and chunky and funky.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's about it for that. Overall, I think we can all agree that the Zelda franchise has some good combat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
I love it.
I mean, it is one of the main pillars of the series, with a few dips here and there, but you know.
Fair, but yeah, that's bound to happen in a series that's lasted as long as this one.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for listening to this and maybe the previous part of this discussion as well. Now, this is, as I said at the beginning of the episode, this is the last episode of the Kakariko Road for this year, and it may also be the last episode in quite a while because we have some other plans for the Kakariko Road team, which is the three of us. So at the start of next year, if everything goes according to to plan, we are intending on starting a Let's Play of Triforce Heroes.
Yes.
Yep. If we can get that all to work, Petter, I think you said that you're going to show off all the costumes. I think you said you're going to use your old file.
Yeah, I'm going to be using my file, which is virtually 100%ed. Like, I haven't beaten all of the all of the bonus challenges, but I do have all of the costumes unlocked. And that will also make it easier for you guys.
So in that sense, this is going to be more of a complete Let's Play, since we'll be showing off the vast majority, if not all, of the costumes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it will be both Stevens and Chase's first time through the game.
Yep.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's just going to be a casual playthrough. We'll probably be playing like one level per episode. That's probably a good way to divide it, I imagine. So the episode lengths might vary.
Yeah.
But I think that's okay.
Yeah, in the end, we'll see what we do when the time comes.
I think so, yeah.
Yep.
And I think, at least I am right now, very much just rambling for no apparent reason. So that probably means it's time to close the episode.
Yeah.
So look forward to that next year.
I hope you do, yes.
Yeah,
in January at some point.
Sometime in January.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a little bit past 4:30 a.m. for me. I think that's why I'm a little bit...
You should probably go to bed.
I probably should. I definitely should, actually.
Okay.
But thank you, everyone, so much for listening to and supporting Kakariko Road and Cosmic Casters in general. Episode 30 is over, and episode 31 may not be coming in a while, but you'll have the Let's Play of Triforce Heroes instead. And thank you so much for listening. Check out the video description for links to our other channels and some other cool places. And we'll see you guys in Triforce Heroes. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.